What's Tennessee's defense need to do to take another step in 2023? What's that offensive line look like trying to replace two key starters? Those questions, many more, here on this edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys being here today. Shout out everydayers. We have a couple of your Twitter Tuesday questions for the mailbag show we're going to get into here in segment number one. We've got Bill Connelly over at ESPN.com. He ranked the top 75 quarterbacks of the 2000s. Some interesting notes in there regarding Josh Heupel. That's going up in segment two. And then Tennessee baseball, regional bound, going to the Clemson Regional. Well, this is kind of tough sledding for Tennessee, but more so for Clemson. That is coming up in segment number three. Appreciate you guys being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day, and subscribing to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and following us, subscribing wherever you get your audio podcast. Can't thank you enough. It's been a really, really fun week so far. It's going to get even more exciting as the week goes on. It's Tennessee baseball begins NCAA postseason play in Clemson. So I'm going to be down there in South Carolina. Going to be bringing all that coverage for you right here on Locked On Vols and on volquest.com. Let's go ahead and get into it. Twitter Tuesday for the everydayers. You guys send in some questions and got a couple here today and going to do my best to answer them. A couple here from Drew. How are we looking for Boo Carter? And some of the other in-state talent in this class. I think he's enjoying the recruiting process, but will ultimately stay home in the end. Yeah, he was on campus for the 865 Live event over the weekend, that Memorial Day recruiting event, and we got a video over at volquest.com. He seemed like he really enjoyed the day. He knows that his mission, if he is going to be a part of this class, is to bring more talented guys with him, especially some of those in-state guys, as you mentioned. He's a guy that can play a little bit of everything. He can play cornerback, can play safety, can play wide receiver. I think his future at the college level and at Tennessee would be in the defensive backfield, maybe at the nickel. But he's a guy that Tennessee likes and covets a whole lot. They have been talking with him for a long, long time. He's been to campus so many different times. But as you mentioned, yeah, he does enjoy the process. Colorado, Miami, Florida, Georgia, Michigan. All those teams are still active in Boo Carter's recruitment. He'll take an official visit here next week. He confirmed that with VolQuest over the weekend, or next month, rather. He confirmed that with VolQuest over the weekend, so that's good to see. But the biggest one with Boo Carter, Mari Jefferson, in-state's wide receiver, I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, Baylor School, Edwin Spillman, linebacker, at Lipscomb Academy. There's already some in-state prospects who have already committed to the University of Tennessee, but Boo is one of those guys. Even Austin Price on Friday's show, when I kind of asked him who could be that guy that everybody follows, he mentioned it could be Boo Carter. So I think that Tennessee covets him a whole lot, and they would love for him to jump in this class here this summer. But we'll have to see. Another one here from Drew. For our defense to improve, do we not have to sit Tank McCullough and let somebody else play safety back there, most likely beside of Wesley Walker? Even if it means playing someone younger with less experience, no way we can improve in the back end if he still have McCullough back there. He's slow, can't tackle, takes the worst angles. I feel like Danico Slaughter is more valuable at corner with Judy Lawley across from him. If we shore up the safety position and add some speed, I think our defense can take a step. What say you? Yeah, there's a lot of truth in what you said there for sure. Safety, that position has not been great the last couple of years. It's been slow. They've missed tackles in open spaces. And not to say the cornerback position's been, really, really good. Now, you had Alontae Taylor a couple of years ago. He was drafted in the second round, and he was, pretty solid. And you've had some bright spots like Danico Slaughter, who just moved over there and never played it, and at points in times looked really, really good. I think no matter what, Danico Slaughter is going to play somewhere. I think he's, at cornerback right now, but if you can find, Judy Lawley, and maybe if Kamal Haddon can, play consistently, or maybe Brandon Turnage, or one of these young guys like Jordan Matthews, Ricky Gibson, Christian Conyer, whoever, maybe that could free up Danico Slaughter to go back to safety. But in my opinion, I think this is what's going to happen. I think your starting safeties, until I see otherwise, will be Jalen McCullough and I believe it will be Wesley Walker. Walker, of course, played a little bit with Tamari McDonald, the star position last year. I think Wesley Walker's a starter no matter what. But until I see otherwise, I'm going to say it's going to be Tank McCullough, Jalen McCullough, who has a lot of ability, but, he and Trayvon Flowers have been the two starting safeties for, much of the last 4 years. And it's easy to look back there and say, gosh, you just got to get an upgrade. So my hope for Tennessee this year is that you have guys that can push those guys. Whereas, sure, they might be your best options, and sure, they might be out there play one, but when they get beat, you throw in an Andre Turrentine, you throw in a Jordan Thomas, you throw in a Christian Charles back at his normal safety position, that you can go in there and you can get those guys and then play the hot hand, right? So many times the last couple of years, they continue to play those two guys because they were the best that they had. Credit that to the transfer portal, everybody leaving at points in times after the Jeremy Pruitt regime was let go. Lack of development, sure, but from a numbers perspective and from a trust perspective, those two guys were trusted by Tim Banks and Willie Martinez, and so they played. The hope is this year that Jordan Thomas, Andre Turrentine, Christian Charles, maybe Danico Slaughter, whoever, can really push those guys. John Slaughter can push those guys and make it tough for them to just say, hey, it's not a guarantee that we're going to play 60 or 70 snaps a game. I think that makes Tennessee better. And so you might have those guys starting, but the fact that you can roll other guys out there when something goes wrong, I think shows the sign of a team that's growing. So that's kind of what I foresee happening. We'll see overall exactly what it looks like, but good stuff there. And you're right. I mean, if you can shore up safety, I think this defense will take a step. Again, a lot of that would be getting to the quarterback with your front four, not having to send guys from the second level, thus putting the secondary and those safeties in man coverage, allow them to run over the top, play a little bit free. Go make some plays. We'll see. It all ties together. Got another question here that we're going to get into for Twitter Tuesday. This is from Third Aspect. Hey, Eric, how's the offensive line been doing as far as them coming together, or has no position been settled just yet? Yeah, good question. I mean, you're replacing, obviously, a top 10 pick in Darnell Wright, who was fantastic on one side. You're replacing Jerome Carvin, who was so underrated throughout his Tennessee career at one of the guard spots. You were never settled at left tackle last year with Gerald Mincey and J.J. Crawford, though those two guys split, pretty much evenly the left tackle position last year, especially leading up to the bowl game, just a couple snaps difference. And so you were good enough, but you were never settled, if that makes sense. Now the plan is, and what we've seen in spring practice so far, is those two guys are flipping to the right side and competing. John Campbell coming in from Miami is going to be your left tackle. And that's all great, but, again, until you see it, until you see him adapting to this offense and everything, you're not going to feel really, really good about it. But the reports are, the talk around campus is John Campbell is going to be a starting left tackle. Of course, you have Cooper Mays that's going to be your center. All right, he was banged up a little bit in spring, but he's your center. Javonte Spraggins is going to be your right guard. And so the question is, who's going to play right tackle and who's going to play left guard? At least for me, I feel more comfortable in the right tackle position because at least you have those two guys who played. Sure, you wanted one of those guys to solidify the spot and to run away with it, and though they kind of tag teamed that position much of last year together, you still had results. At left guard, are you going to go the veteran routes? Ollie Lane, who's played a whole lot of football for you. Maybe Jackson Lampley's in there. He's played some football for you, been a part of this program and this offense for a long time. Could you go a younger route? Could you go Addison Nichols, who has proved to be Cooper Mays' backup at center, but can also maybe fit in there and make the starting five better if he's the starting left guard? Will it be Andre Keurig, who transferred from Texas, who, was thrown in the fire a little bit during spring and never, got that spot, but he'll have a chance to compete for that in fall camp. It's kind of a four-man race right now, and, Addison Nichols might be your starting left guard, or Ollie Lane might be your starting left guard. We'll have to see. But obviously, it's one of the most underrated storylines of Tennessee's offseason. Don't just assume that offense is going to be high-flying, top 10, Joe Milton going and throwing, bombs for touchdowns. Got to have guys that can block in front of them. And it's critical that you find a right tackle and a left guard. So good questions there. Hey, when we come back, we will discuss. Bill Connelly put out a story last week about the top 75 quarterbacks of the 2000s. Some interesting ones in there that have Josh Heupel ties, and looking forward to going over that here in just a moment. But first, I want to remind you guys about a proud sponsor of the show, that is Built Bar. Looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. That is Built, and you got to try this. If you're like me, wanting to make healthier snack choices but don't want to compromise on the taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy, taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing, you won't think that they're good for you. What makes them so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. And they're only 130 calories. 100% covered in real chocolate, but only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, a whopping 17 grams of protein stuffed in those Built Bars and Puffs. They are so good for you. You can order specialty flavors at Built.com, but now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Go to Walmart, get a 4-bar box of bars or puffs. Go to Sam's, get a 13-bar box of puffs or bars. And you don't have to wait in the lines, right? You don't have to wait at the mailbox, but you can still order at the mailbox for specialty flavors over at Built.com. Built Bars, they're amazing for you, and they taste amazing too. All right, guys, welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys being here as always. Shout out to you everydayers. Got a full week ahead. Continue to look forward to Tennessee's 2023 football schedule. Hopefully checking in with some more Locked On Vols hosts as the week goes on. Baseball getting into regional play, and the Clemson Regional will have, I'll talk about that here in segment 3. But something that came out last week over at ESPN.com, Bill Connelly, he does the S&P Plus rankings. We talk about those on the show a little bit. But he came out with his top 75 quarterbacks of the college game from the 2000s. So from 2000 to now, the 23 years or 22 seasons, whatever, and how, which ones rank 1 through 75. And reading this, this list, boy, it's a blast from the past, man. I've seen names from my childhood that I haven't heard of or thought of in years. And so it was fun kind of going through this list. But there are 2 names on there that have ties to Josh Heupel. We'll get to that in a moment because there's no Tennessee quarterbacks. I mean, think about it. You had Peyton Manning, who was Peyton Manning. You had T. Martin, who led Tennessee to a national championship. You had Casey Clausen, who was a solid quarterback. But outside of Clausen, really in the years 2000s, maybe Dobbs in this conversation, and of course Hooker would now be in this conversation. But Tennessee hasn't had great quarterback play in the 2000s. Eric Ainge, had some bright moments. But then after Ainge, I mean, Jonathan Crofton had a couple good games his senior year. You have to get to Dobbs, and then you have to get to Hooker, really, to kind of be in this conversation. None of those guys rank inside the top 75 quarterbacks of the 2000s. Keep in mind, guys, I mean, there's a lot of football teams out there, and there's been a lot of good quarterback play. So I wouldn't take it as a slight, but some of these names, we'll just go ahead and mention. Leading this list off at number 1 would be Baker Mayfield. Former number 1 overall pick, 2013 to 17, of course, at Oklahoma. Number 2, Cam Newton, and they put his years here, 2007 to 2010, but really it's just that 2010 season. One of the best football seasons ever by anybody to ever play the college football game. That was Cam Newton's 2010 season. He comes in at number 2. Vince Young comes in at number 3, 05 national champions. Tim Tebow comes in at number 4. Joe Burrow at number 5. Deshaun Watson at 6. Kyler Murray at 7. Tons of Oklahoma quarterbacks on this. Lamar Jackson comes in at number 8. Marcus Mariota comes in at number 9. And Robert Griffin III comes in at number 10. Those are 10 pretty solid college quarterbacks. Sure, they did not have, a lot of those guys did not have the NFL careers that they desired or turned out to be bust or, weren't worthy of their selections. But in terms of the college game, they were pretty good. Trevor Lawrence comes in at number 11. Colt McCoy, who I believe is still hanging on in the NFL. What a career he's had. Comes in at number 12. Johnny Manziel, number 13. Boy, was he electric at the college game. Kellen Moore, Boise State. Remember that? I do. And then here's the Josh Heupel connection. You have Sam Bradford coming in at number 15. Played at Oklahoma in 2007 through 2009, had 8,403 passing yards, a 68% completion rate, 88 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns. This is the little blurb they have on Sam Bradford. The 2008 Oklahoma offense was, at the time, the best spread attack in history. Bradford threw for 4,700 yards and 50 touchdowns, and the Sooners scored at least 58 points in 6 consecutive Big 12 games that year. Only a 2009 injury and a couple of goal line failures in the 2008 national title game kept him out of a potential top 10 spot here, that being Sam Bradford. You know who was coaching quarterbacks for Sam Bradford? You know who was the offensive coordinator towards the end of his career over there in Oklahoma? Man, that was Josh Heupel. And think about this. Back then, I mean, I know 50 touchdowns now, it's still a lot, don't get me wrong, but you kind of see that more often than not. For Sam Bradford to throw 50 touchdowns and over 4,700 yards passing in one season, pretty incredible. 58 points in 6 consecutive Big 12 games. Not bad. And Josh Heupel was his coach. Jameis Winston, the one-year wonder essentially with that natty in 2013, or whatever it was, comes in number 16. What's up, crab legs? 17 is Matt Leinart. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. Andrew Luck at Stanford coming in at number 18. Bryce Young at Alabama, 19. CJ Stroud, 20. Tua Tagovailoa, 21. Philip Rivers. Yeah, I mean, he played forever in the National Football League, so he played college somewhere. Of course, that was NC State. We knew that. Carson Palmer, USC, 23rd. Case Keenum, Houston, 2007 through 2011. He was a record-setting quarterback at the time. Jalen Hurts at 25. Russell Wilson at 26. Pat White at 27, Ben Roethlisberger at 28, Justin Fields at 29, and then Rex Grossman, yikes, at number 30. Oh boy, any Chicago Bears fans listening right now just turned off the dial. In a moment, we'll have another connection to Josh Heupel. Colin Kaepernick at 31, Jason White. I'm not sure if he was on roster when Heupel finished up his tenure at Oklahoma, his career to Oklahoma. I know Josh Heupel started as a GA in 2004. I'm not sure if there was much overlap there, but Jason White, one of the better quarterbacks of the college game towards the end of the century and starting this new century, he comes in at number 32. That's not the connection I'm talking about, but there is some holdover there. Troy Smith, 33. Graham Harrell of Texas Tech, 34. Chase Daniel at Missouri, 35. Ken Dorsey, what's up? That was at number 36. Stetson Bennett, 37. Mac Jones, 38. And then here comes in Landry Jones. Landry Jones succeeded Sam Bradford. Remember Landry Jones? He had the stash, right? 16,646 passing yards, 64% completion rate, 123 touchdowns, 52 interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns. It was hard to appreciate what ESPN writes right here, Bill Connelly, Jones's steady excellence in real time, but by the time he graduated, he had put together a 4-year statistical resume that, even in the near decade that has followed, no one has surpassed. A complete list of power conference quarterbacks who have thrown for more yards than Landry Jones. Crickets. And he was coached by Josh Heupel, and he was offensive coordinated by Josh Heupel. So this is a good sign to come, all right? I mean, it's a good sign to come. We've seen great quarterback play from Hendon Hooker since Josh Heupel's been here at Tennessee. That's been exciting, of course. And Josh Heupel's coached some pretty good quarterbacks, and he coached another good quarterback in Drew Lock at Missouri. He coached Mackenzie Milton. He coached Dylan Gabriel at UCF, and now he coached Hendon Hooker. Dude just knows how to coach quarterbacks. No ifs, ands, buts about it, but 2 quarterbacks specifically that Heupel mentored and coached who come in on the top 75 quarterbacks of the 2000s, according to Bill Connelly. Landry Jones at 39, Sam Bradford at 15. Both of those guys coached by Josh Heupel. If you're curious, I'm not going to go through and read all these, continuing on, but just a couple of notable ones. Aaron Murray comes in at 43. Brian Leftwich at 44. Brady Quinn, Notre Dame at 46. Eli Manning at 47. Let's see here. Just doing the highlights here. Mason Rudolph, 56. Patrick Mahomes, 57 at Texas Tech. Aaron Rodgers of Cal, 59. Kenny Pickett, 60. Max Duggan, 62. Zach Wilson, 63. Andy Dalton, 64. You guys remember J.T. Barrett of Ohio State? He comes in at 66. Let's see. Geno Smith, West Virginia, 70. Brandon Weeden, Oklahoma. He comes in at Oklahoma State. He comes in at 71. He was the oldest quarterback to ever be drafted in the first round. Interesting stuff there. And then Teddy Bridgewater, 74. Dak Prescott, 72. Matt Ryan comes in at number 75. So, again, no Tennessee quarterbacks on this list, but I did think it was noteworthy that Josh Heupel coached 2 of the best quarterbacks ever to play the college game, according to Bill Connelly, since the year 2000. I wanted to share that. I thought that was pretty interesting. Will there be another quarterback, maybe Nico Imaliava, on this list in years to come? We will stay tuned to find out. Tennessee baseball, Clemson regional bound. Why this could be a good thing for Tennessee, but why it's a tough draw. More on that here in a moment as we continue on with our Tuesday Locked On Vols. All right, guys, welcome back into it. A final segment here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Hope everybody had a happy Memorial Day, a safe Memorial Day, and shout-outs and thank you and forever praise and forever thanks to the men and women who have pay the ultimate sacrifice to, allow me to do what I love, to allow us to live in a free country, knowing the real meaning for, behind Memorial Day and to those who have been affected, those families. So can never put into words how thankful we are to live in this country, thanks to the men and women who sacrifice it all to make this country what it is. All right, so Tennessee baseball. It's going to the Clemson Regional. Not a shock. It was always a possibility, but Clemson was the 4th overall seed. Tennessee, one of the best 2 seeds in America, in my opinion, one of the better, teams in the country, an opportunity to host, as of, the SEC tournament. If you won a couple of games, potentially you were, going to host. You were in that conversation. But the draw going to the 4th overall team in Clemson kind of sucks, right? Clemson's a good ball club. I'll have a complete preview and all that over at VolQuest.com. We'll talk about it here on the show as the week goes on. But, that's kind of a tough draw because the projections each of the last 4 or 5 days since Tennessee's been put out of the SEC tournament at D1 Baseball have had Tennessee going to the Terre Haute Regional. I know I just messed that up, but Indiana State, essentially. And, as of Monday morning, the last, or maybe it was Sunday night, the last regional predictions that were out there for the Field of 64 over D1 Baseball still had Tennessee going to the Terre Haute Regional for Indiana State. Indiana State would have been the 16th overall seed, the last hosting, program in the field, and that's kind of where Tennessee was projected. But projections are projections, and I'm not over here downing D1 Baseball. I'm a big fan of what they do. I follow their work. They do a great job. But projections are just that. They're projections. And we never know exactly what the committee is going to value until we see the draw. Because Tennessee was sent to Clemson, that regional, because Tennessee essentially is the 2nd seed and the Clemson regional for the Tigers, who were the 4th overall seed, what that tells us is the committee looked at Tennessee's resume and said, okay, you're 5-14 away from Lindsey Nelson Stadium this year. That is not good. What is your best non-conference win? We know you played in the SEC. We know the turnaround you had in SEC play, but what did you do outside of conference play? Not a whole lot at all, right? Oh, that Tennessee Tech game you lost. Ooh, yikes. I understand it's midweek. How did you do in Arizona to begin the season? You went 2-1 or 1-2, excuse me, over against an Arizona team that just got into the field. Not great, right? So that's what the committee tells me. What this tells me is the committee did not value whatsoever Tennessee's road record or Tennessee's non-conference wins. And that's not a shock, right? Tennessee's road record's been bad all year. We've known this. We've known that Tennessee didn't have the best non-conference schedule slate. And so that's why it doesn't come as a shock to me. The projections, the talk, all week long was that Tennessee was going to go, was going to be a 2 seed to one of those lower rated host sites. Indiana State was one. Coral Gables, Miami, which Miami was not, in the middle of the pack in terms of host sites, but Miami was tossed around there a little bit. Coastal Carolina was tossed around there a little bit. West Virginia was tossed around there a little bit in recent weeks. And so, surprising, I guess, is the way you could phrase it. More so than anything, Clemson's a good ball club. And again, like I said, I'll have a complete preview for it later on in the week, but Clemson's a good ball club. Won the ACC tournaments. The rest of that regional is, Charlotte, who won its conference tournament championship. Tennessee will square off against Charlotte on Friday night at 6 o'clock. Lipscomb just won its conference tournament. That's how it punched its ticket. They'll square off as the 4th seed going against the top seed Clemson at 1 o'clock on Friday. Tennessee has a late game on Friday. The path to the regional championship would be for Tennessee to win Friday night, win on Saturday, and then play in the championship game on Sunday. It's double elimination. Tennessee could lose and fight its way back, win 2 more games over the eventual champion, and still be victorious. It's a double elimination bracket, and so that's kind of how regional play works. It's kind of tough for Tennessee, though. It's not necessarily a reward, if you will. It's nicer in terms of regional, which geography is supposed to play a factor into this a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not the end all be all. That's why I thought for so long Tennessee was going to the Indiana State regional. So we will see. But at the end of the day, if you're Clemson and you're sitting here like, I'm the 4th overall seed, and they put Tennessee as the 2 seed in my regional, are you kidding me? If I'm Clemson, I got beef with the NCAA. Like, what are you doing? Like, if I'm Clemson, I'm like, why did you just do that to me? That is That is essentially not fair if I'm Clemson, right? So it's a tough draw for Tennessee, but more than anything, it's kind of insulting to Clemson, if you will. The Clemson Regional is paired with the Auburn Regional, meaning the winner of the Clemson Regional will take on the winner of the Auburn Regional for Super Regional play. Auburn is the host side over there. You got the host team over there. You got Penn. You have Southern Miss. You have Samford. Southern Miss very, very well could win that regional potentially. If that were to happen and Tennessee were to win the Clemson Regional, potentially there's an outside chance Tennessee could be hosting a Super Regional in Knoxville. But we will certainly just have to see, what that looks like. But Tennessee's got a pretty nice draw in terms of supers, in my opinion. Auburn's not a bad team whatsoever. But put it this way, if Tennessee was projected to go to the Indiana State Regional, it would be paired with the top seed Wake Forest in a lot of those projections. Actually, in reality, the Alabama Regional, the Tuscaloosa Regional, is paired with Wake Forest. And Tennessee was never going to go to an SEC host side. We knew that. But Alabama got that 16th seed, and they're kind of paired with Wake Forest. If Tennessee were to have gone to a 14 or 15, it would have been competing against one of the higher seeded teams like Wake Forest or like Florida or like LSU or something. So there's two sides to every coin, if you will. But that's just kind of what I think about that. So interesting. We'll see exactly, what kind of comes out of this week. It's kind of a tough draw, but at the end of the day, Tennessee's capable of beating anybody in the country. Tennessee is good enough to beat anybody in the country if you can have timely hitting, if you can hit away on the road, which Tennessee's not done a lot this year. At least you did pick up your first road series win of the season just a couple of weeks ago on the last regular season, series of the year. So that's good to see. But Tennessee's got its work cut out for them for sure. You got Charlotte on Friday, and then we'll have to see exactly what it is. But if Tennessee wants to advance on to Supers and take on the winner of the Auburn Regional, Tennessee will have to take down Clemson at some point this weekend, the Tigers. So looking forward to bringing you coverage from that and all week long on Tennessee baseball back into postseason play. The first time Tennessee's been on the road in postseason play since 2019 when it finished as runner-up in the Chapel Hill Regional back there. Of course, Tennessee went to Omaha in 2021. Of course, you can say that's away from Lindsey Nelson Stadium because it is, but Tennessee has hosted, in 2021, Tennessee hosted. 2022, Tennessee hosted. Tennessee's on the road, and it will begin postseason play in the Clemson Regional as the Tigers are the 4th overall seed. All right, guys, appreciate you guys for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Vols. Shout out everydayers. Appreciate you guys coming back each and every day. If you want to know what an everydayer is, come back tomorrow. We'll let you know all about it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and follow us, subscribe to us anywhere you get your audio podcast. Hope to have Josh Ward for a little Ward Wednesday coming up on tomorrow's show. That and a whole lot more Tennessee football. This is Locked On Vols.